Hey, welcome to the Weight Care Podcast. I'm your host, Sharon Polsky, and these are conversations about a new era of weight management and GLP-1 weight loss medications. And on today's show, I am going to be welcoming Cory. He is a weight care client or patient, and he has gotten towards the end of his weight care journey. So I'm super excited to talk to him about why he decided to use weight care, why he decided to go with a GLP-1, and what that journey looked like for him and what the future looks like for him. So I want you to stay tuned for another episode of the Weight Care Podcast. I am so excited to welcome Cory to the Weight Care Podcast, and we are going to have a conversation about his personal journey. Cory, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living.
Hey, everybody. My name is Cory Perkins. I live in Houston, Texas. I am a chief inspector in the petrochemical world down here in Houston. Oil and gas is big in my neck of the woods. And so I work for a company that produces lubricant additives. And so that's a little bit about what I do.
Is it a desk job? Is it a relatively active job?
It's about 50-50. I spend time, inspecting equipment, going into tanks and looking at piping and different things like that. And that's sort of out in the plant. And then I have and then I take all that data and bring it back to my office and report out on it. So it's about 50-50.
Yeah. So you're not as physically active as like a construction worker would be or something like that.
That's right. That's right.
So when did you begin noticing that you had a problem with your weight? Was it when you were young and you struggled with it your whole life? Or is it something that crept up on you over time?
Definitely something that crept up on me over time. I was 30 years old when I got married, and I don't know if that was when my metabolism started slowing down or what, but I think about 12 years later, I had packed on like 50 plus pounds. And yeah, a lot of it had to do with like personal choices and things like that, just not really, throughout my 30s, not really taking into account some of the things I was putting in my body, a lot of carbs. And my wife she's Hispanic, and so they got all the tortillas and the Mexican food, which is just, it's part of the culture as well. So yeah, just wasn't as active as I probably should have been, and slowly throughout the years, the weight just kind of kept piling on.
And what was the tipping point that made you want to consider going with a GLP-1 or a company like Weight Care?
Well, first things first is the Weight Care, the way that it's advertised. They actually somehow or another have advertisements through my corporation that I work for, which was neat, right? Because you're looking at that and it's like, hey, do you know about this? And here's a little discount for you, if this is something that you're interested in. And so that was part of it. And the other part of it was just that I was getting to the point where I was really uncomfortable, like I would, sit down on the couch or sit in or driving in my truck or in a vehicle, and also just kind of seeing myself in pictures and things like that. It was kind of like a bit of a light bulb of self-realization, like, wow.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call, right?
It is. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, just no sense in beating around it. But yes, it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call.
And do you have children?
I do have one 22-year-old son, yes.
Oh, amazing. I always say too, like one of the reasons we want to think about our health now is so we're around for those grandchildren and we're around for the future of our families.
That's very true. It's very true.
So you decided to go with Weight Care, and what was your top weight at that time?
It was like 282 pounds.
And for perspective, like what was your high school weight?
My high school weight was probably like 175, 180, somewhere around there.
You
So
are 100 plus pounds heavier than when you started your adulthood.
yes, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too. Like when I was in high school, like I was fairly active. I remember we rode bikes everywhere and we played football and you know, we did a lot of like physical activity. And I was always kind of I was always fairly thin. I wasn't never really like skinny, but actually I remember when I was like 18 years old, I had a six pack. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a lot different than what I what I am now.
Yeah, yeah, most of us are not the way we were then. But I always try to
Mhm.
give that for people for perspective because I mean people that are quite large actually are like, well, 200 is not that bad, but you have to compare that to where you started from, right? Where when you started adulthood, what that looked like for you.
Yes.
And then how far along are you in your weight loss, weight care journey?
I want to say it's 5 months, I believe.
And do you know how much weight you've lost over these 5 months?
I think the last time that I checked, it was about 35 pounds.
That's amazing. 35 pounds in 5 months. I mean, that's really amazing progress. And are you taking semaglutide or tirzepatide?
I'm doing the semaglutide.
Okay, amazing. Do you feel like well, first of all, did you have a lot of side effects when you first started your weight care journey?
I really didn't have a whole lot of side effects. Mainly, there wasn't really any like stomach aches or things like that. I think while I was having like bowel movements and things like that,
A
it
little
was
bit more challenging.
it was a little bit more challenging, and it was kind of different. Like as time progressed, as my body adjusted to it and things like that. But there was a couple times when that there was some adjustment to be made there. But
Yeah. Do
other
you
than
feel
that,
like the reward was worth that uncomfortable side effect?
oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. One of the rewarding things that I noticed maybe like a month in was like I remember I would have eaten quite a few different times throughout my week or whatever, and I just really wasn't hungry, and so that was cool. And I kind of went into it knowing like there's no magic thing that you can just take and everything just goes away. It's not that, but I did realize, hey, if you're active and you're drinking water and you're not eating and you're not putting lots of calories into your body, you're probably burning some fat. And so that was kind of a bit of a smiling point, for lack of better words, for
Yeah.
myself.
So, how much longer do you feel like you're going to need to be on your weight care journey?
So I'm gonna I have one more month's worth of the semaglutide, which would make 6 months. My personal goal for myself was to get about 40 to be 40 pounds in 6 months. So I've got like 5 or 6 more pounds that I've got to lose in the next month, but I feel good. People are noticing. I've got people at my work are like, oh, I can see it in your shoulders and I can see it in your face. And it always feels good. And also my clothes feel a lot better too. Like,
Mhm.
so yeah, so I've got 6 months, and in working with my weight care specialist, shout out to Nancy Alexis. She's great.
Amazing, isn't she?
She's great. Hopefully, I can continue the trajectory of moving into like personal lifestyle changes
Yeah.
and continue to shed a pound here and a pound there and not go back to some of my old eating habits that I had before I started the journey.
That's amazing. And if you had any advice to give to somebody that's considering taking a GLP-1, what would that advice be?
Well, my first advice would be definitely consult with your primary healthcare physician and just let him or her know that that you're thinking about doing this, because that was important to me. My PHP, he was like, yeah, I think that's a good idea, because he already knew that I was dealing with high cholesterol, and that my blood pressure was elevated at times and things like that. And so he was like, I think this is a good idea. So once I kind of got the go ahead with that, then I went into it with an open mind. And my advice with for people that are thinking about taking the GLP-1s is that if you go into it with, this is not a magic thing that I'm going to just take and the fat's just going to disappear, but it is something that will greatly help me along in the journey if I'm willing to put in some work too. It's not like you have to, take it and then go try to burn 500 calories every day in the gym. You don't have to do that, but my approach was more like, hey, if I'm not eating, what if I drank 2 extra bottles of water today and then I went on a walk around the block? And I started incorporating just walking. Like I said, when you're almost 300 pounds, like me, my knees, and I'm getting older too. I recently turned 44, so my knees aren't what they were when I was 19, but just incorporating walking and drinking water and just making small little steps with what you do eat. It helps tremendously. And I did see results within the first month. It was like, wow, there goes 6 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, it works. If you incorporate all the lifestyle intervention things, it works relatively quickly. Everybody's differently. It can take, 4 to 6 weeks for it to kick in, but you did it the right way. You put in the lifestyle intervention. And I always say that your GLP-1s are like a tool in that toolbox. Water is a tool, sleep's a tool, stress management's a tool, nutrition's a tool, exercise. So if you can get all of that in place, you really can do a lot of things.
Yep.
Well, Cory, I want to thank you for joining us on the Weight Care podcast. And hopefully you'll stop back by and say hello to me when you're at the end of your journey and we can go and talk about that.
I sure will. That would be great. Thank you so much for having me, and good luck to anybody out there that's going to be taking the semaglutide or the GLP-1 medicine. Wish you the best of luck on your journey. You can do it. You can do it.
You're amazing, Cory. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
That was Cory, one of our amazing users at WeightCare. And I want to thank you for tuning in to the WeightCare podcast, conversations on a new era of weight management and GLP-1 weight loss medications. I'm Sharon Polsky, your host and your GLP-1 fact fairy. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember that we come back every 2 weeks with a new episode. If you are ready to see if GLP-1s are right for you, please go to joinweightcare.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another exciting episode. So until then, keep exploring, keep learning, keep growing. And thanks for listening to the Weight Care podcast and your GLP-1 fact fairy, Sharon Polsky. Weight Care podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The content shared here represents the views and opinions of the host and guests and should not be considered medical, health, or professional advice. The podcast is not a substitute for individualized care from qualified medical providers. Please consult with your healthcare provider before making decisions that may affect your health and wellness. Any statements about treatments, health protocols, or medications discussed are based on personal experience or professional expertise and may not be suitable for everyone. Always seek personalized advice from a licensed healthcare professional who understands your specific health needs.